This conference will now be recorded.
I will call the Thursday, August 27th, 2020 meeting of the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors to order here. Welcome, everybody. For the record, the folks we have on the line with us today, Supervisor Doug Rushton, Supervisor David Ayal, Supervisor Helen Wheatley, myself, TJ Johnson, the chair. We have Executive Director Sarah Moorhead. We have our legal counsel, Ben Cushman from Deschutes Law Group, and I think we have our administrative assistant, Leah Kellogg, if I'm correct here. Do expect that Supervisor Betsy DeVreda will be joining us in a little bit. She had a previous meeting, so she's going to join us as soon as she's done with that. Of course, we're audio recording this for posterity and our records. First item here in our agenda, next item on our agenda is the agenda review. Are there any changes from either staff or board members?
I have no changes, but I think Jean's on the phone too, or on the call.
Oh, she is too. Hello, Jean. Jean Pike from the Washington State Conservation Commission. Did not mean to slight you there, Jean.
No, not at all. No problem at all.
Okay. So I'm not hearing any changes to the agenda, so I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Helen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by David. We'll do a roll call vote here. Helen?
Yay.
David?
Aye.
Doug?
Yay.
Chair votes aye. We have an approved agenda. Next item on the approved agenda is our consent agenda. 4 items on consent this evening. We have the minutes from our July 30th board meeting. We have our July financial report. We have an ecology crew contract, that's WCC-2040. And we have the TCD standards for community member conduct that we worked on and polished up at our last work session. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So
Motion
moved.
to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I think I heard Doug make the motion first and seconded by Helen. Roll call vote. Doug?
Aye.
Helen?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We've approved the consent agenda.
Can I ask a question at this point?
Yes.
Well, I noticed that, in the packet, the consent agenda has a signature area for all of us. Are we supposed to sign it, or what happens with that?
Yes. Leah coordinates signatures among board members post-meeting.
Okay.
All right. Normally, if we were all together, we'd just pass the sheet around the room.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Do we just send in our particular sheet, or do we go sign it in some other fashion later on?
Yeah, I think it's the latter.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Next up then is public comment. I don't believe we have any member of the public here on our call tonight, but if there is someone, this is the opportunity if you want to address the board. Going once. Going twice. Okay, no public comment. Takes us to item 5, partner reports. First up is the State Conservation Commission. Jean, hello.
Hi, how are y'all doing? Yeah,
Fine.
I have a couple of things. Good. I have a couple of things to mention, and I'll just not go into a lot of detail initially, and then I'm happy to answer follow-up questions if I can. So there's a lot coming up right now around elections. You're probably tracking the fact that the public comment period for the proposed WAC changes, rule changes regarding conservation district elections expires September 1st. Following that, at the September commission meeting, the expectation is that the commission will take action regarding those proposals and perhaps other changes to elections WAC. So if you haven't made comment yet and would like to, that time is running short. Also, please remember that last year the commission added a requirement that at least one person from each conservation district was required to attend elections training. That training is currently being developed and will be available by webinar beginning October 2nd. It's highly recommended that at least one, you have to have one, please get two if you can to that training. We've had situations where the election supervisor fell ill or left the employee of the district, and there was a scramble to get somebody trained. Bill Eller, who's our commission lead on elections, is also our VSP person. As you may know, there's a pretty busy period for VSP coming up at about the same time, and so we're concerned that if people have trouble, we won't have enough capacity to answer questions. So please do your best to send at least 2 people and as many as you like to that training once it's available. It'll be recorded, and so you can attend it at any time after the 2nd of October. Questions about elections? Okay, I'll move on to budget. We've been talking about budget a lot. I don't have a lot new to report, but there's a linkage that I want to make sure is clear. There's a lot of layers to the state budget situation and the way that the commission is responding to that and working with districts to minimize impacts to their bottom line. So as you know, in the current fiscal year, the commission has been asked to produce a 15% cut. We've been able to do that without impacting districts so far, and hopeful that if nothing else changes, the governor doesn't ask for an additional cut, there's no sort of other surprise along those lines, that should be fine. In each year of the upcoming biennium, that was a little harder to do. We were asked to do that same 15% cut. And there's a webinar that was recorded that takes people through some of the additional cost-cutting measures that the commission pursued to try very hard to keep that cut from impacting the implementation dollars that we pass through and provide to districts. If nothing else changes, we think with the additional cuts that we've made, we'll be able to keep the implementation dollars at something like the pre-ORCA levels. There was an additional pot of money awarded with a proviso in the legislature this last biennium that we think was a one-time award. There's some chance that it will be ongoing, but we're not sure. So we're assuming sort of before that additional award level. Now, all that assumes that when the legislature comes back into session, they don't ask for an additional cut. It may be on the plus side that the federal government will come with some sort of rescue package for states that would take some of the pressure off, and we'd be looking at a much better picture. So the real variable in all of this is how well we do with our decision packages at the legislative session upcoming. And the reason this is so especially important right now is the way that the commission is shielding the implementation dollars, those are operating dollars, is by taking a small cut, an administrative cut from the capital dollars that we're able to secure. We haven't always needed to take this, and we haven't done it, but right now that's how we're gathering enough operating money to keep the districts whole and keep our staffing whole and continue to function. If we don't have the same level of success at the legislature, we lose some of those tools, and there just isn't as much leeway, right? We don't have as many grants to charge staff time to. We don't have the ability to take that administrative cut and then essentially convert that into operating dollars and be able to keep the implementation dollars whole, if that makes sense. So even if there is a decision package that may not directly affect your district, keep in mind that the overall success affects everybody's implementation allocations. So it's very much a all for one and one for all legislative session, even more than usual. So I just want to make sure that that linkage is clear. Are there questions I can answer about that? Yeah, and feel free to follow up if something occurs to you later. Just give me a call, and I'm happy to take you through more detail, and I'll put links to more information in my follow-up email. And the third thing I wanted to make sure you guys were tracking was the proposal that DFW be added as a voting member of the commission's governing body, a request by that agency to do so. There's a memo and there's a survey that came out by GovDelivery, and I'll include them in the email in case you missed them. You know, there are implications to doing that, and the memo lays out some things that you might want to think about as you consider what you think. The Commission is asking for districts' input, of course, on this. And there are, in the survey, you'll see, I think there's 4 options you can respond to. There's a sort of a proportionality of representation question. And so the proposal is considered along with other additions to the Commission that might balance in different ways. And so you're asked to consider those as well. Questions about that piece?
What is the timeline?
This is Doug.
on... Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
TJ.
I was just going to ask what the timeline is for getting, for reviewing that and getting feedback back.
Yeah, October 30th is the date by which we'd like to get the surveys back.
Okay.
We have some time. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, go ahead, Doug.
The Department of Fish and Wildlife and its predecessor agencies have been trying for years to get on a commission. Is there anyone that represents the commission on the Wildlife Commission?
I don't know. What a good question. Does anyone know?
I would be surprised.
I don't think there is, but that seems like a valid question to ask for the same reasons.
I think that's good to put in your survey answers, Doug.
Yeah, there's an open form comment form. You could certainly put that in there. That'd be great.
Great.
All right. Anything else people were wondering about? That's all I have. Is there anything else people were wondering about, or?
Further questions for Jean? I guess not. Thanks, Jean.
Sure thing.
Let's then move on. WACD and NACD, we had written reports in the packet. Doug, do you want to add anything to the written reports that you submitted?
Yeah, a couple of things have happened. There's going to be an NACD Pacific Region meeting on October 31st. Excuse me, September 1st, and I will forward that on to Sarah so she can forward it on to the board, and everyone's welcome to participate. It's kind of some of them are not very good meetings and others are really good, so I couldn't predict what'll happen, but Ariel Rivers is the lady that's the Pacific representative, and she's just got tons of energy and ideas, and I really enjoy working with her. So that's a new NACD item. On the WACD side, 2 things. One is October 31st, we'll be having a WACD strategic planning meeting. There's 4 of us that are on a committee to get a strategic plan. So we'll be meeting then in preparation for the September 15th WACD meeting. We'll have a presentation there. And the last thing is a hard one. Some of you may know Alan Stromberg. He used to be the president of WACD. He's out of Lincoln County, or was. Alan died last week. Interesting guy. Loved his farm, loved his family, loved old cars. Interesting guy to be around. So anyway, the Conservation Society will have something written up on their Leaving a Legacy book at some point, so you'll be able to see more on that. And that's all I have.
Is there any questions for Doug? I have one question. In reading your written report, the NACD meeting scheduled for early February in New Orleans, are they at this point? Are they assuming that's going to actually be a physical conference, or is it going to be virtual?
They haven't decided yet. They're still trying to figure out what to do and see what the trend line is for the COVID. I personally will not go to New Orleans if it's an in-person meeting, even though I represent Washington State at that organization. I'll do it virtually, but not interested in potential infections here.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that they haven't already canceled it. I know a lot of conferences even in the first half of 2021 have been canceled or moved to an online platform.
Yes.
Well,
Okay,
yeah, it would be interesting to know because, of course, we could attend some of the sessions if it's not in New Orleans.
yeah. Well, I guess we'll just wait and see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and they're talking about having no charges too, so that would make it even easier to participate. And you could pick and choose more. A lot of times, what happens is the 3 sessions you want to go to are all at the same time. That way, you could listen to the recording and do it.
Okay, thanks, Doug. The last
Okay.
partner report was Department of Ecology, and we don't have Alina with us or anyone from Ecology today, but they did submit the non-point program, sent us their latest update by email. So take a look at that if you hadn't had a chance to do that. That concludes partner reports. Let's move then to item 6, our COVID update. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So on this piece, we've had, some recent developments this week with governor's guidelines centered around agritourism, which is becoming an increasingly hot topic for farms across the state. There's potential that this will impact us here in Thurston County. Right now, these restrictions and these guidelines are set up for phase 2 counties, which Thurston is a phase 3. So at this point, they do not apply. It essentially limits agritourism activities to things that you can do in your personal vehicle, or you pick scenarios where you can have that social distancing. It cuts down on a lot of seasonal things that you see often in the fall and early winter time. A lot of producers are pretty concerned about what this will do to their revenue stream, especially here in Western Washington and Thurston County as well. Agritourism and the value-added farm-based experience is what brings the dollars, and it's not necessarily the value of the pumpkin that goes out the door. So needless to say, there's some growing concern amongst the agricultural community, and I just wanted to share this with the board right now as something to watch. I've been speaking with some of the farms in our community that have a very large agritourism focus, and that's where they generate most of their revenue. And they are anticipating that there's potential that these restrictions may be increased to those phase 3 counties as we see the season go on. No one has a crystal ball and no one can tell. On the other side, I know that there's some effort coming out of Snohomish as well as other partners to work with the governor's office to propose plans and guidelines that producers have been working on for quite some time in preparation for having safe family opportunities on their farm-based businesses with appropriate distancing and following CDC guidelines. I do want to share this now because if these restrictions are extended in the way that they are to Thurston County, it could have a pretty big impact on our agricultural businesses here. On the staff side right now, we're looking into a couple of ways that we can support folks through that, kind of preparing for the worst. Should that happen? We're looking into resources that might be offered through FSA, USDA. FSA as the Farm Service Agency, as a branch of USDA, offers all types of sort of more crop insurance oriented relief packages that don't always include these value added components, these experience-based components of agritourism. But we're looking into seeing if there are pieces there that might be applicable, or if that's something that is in the works and might come down the pike at some point as we really get into the height of this agritourism season. The other thing that we're doing is we've reached out to the Economic Development Council, who has been really successful in getting some funding through the CARES Act to provide some relief to small businesses in the area, to see if that is a resource that might be available to these farm-based businesses, and if not, if there's a partnership there between the district and the EDC that we can explore to try and create some sort of relief system for these folks. So we're just kind of trying to be proactive so that should we all experience worst case scenario, we might be able to support some of these operations through this season, through this really tough time. So on our end, we're still doing a bunch of research and coordination and partnership building to see if there's something there where there's a role for TCD to support, and a lot of fact finding. So that's all I have right now, but just something to keep the board aware that this could be a really potentially big impact to the viability of some of our larger agricultural operations and mid-sized ones in Thurston County.
As a point of information, Sarah, I talked to Mark Craven, and Mark Craven is the chair of the Snohomish district, and he was putting out signs for his corn maze this morning. So they're evidently anticipating moving forward, but he may have some ideas, Sarah, on how we can help folks around Thurston County.
I will absolutely reach out to him, and I know that Snohomish producers in Snohomish have been very involved in having these conversations and making these proposals to the governor's office, and hopefully they can generate together in partnership a really safe approach forward. That's a great idea, Doug. I'll follow up with Mark.
Yeah, and you guys that don't know Mark, you should really meet him. I'd love to introduce you. He's just a wonderful guy. I really like him. And I really like all of you too, so.
Sarah, do you have anything else under COVID update for us?
I think that's really the biggest one. You know, on our end, we're plugging away with the protocols that the board has adopted this summer and haven't seen any challenges. You know, as we're looking forward into the budget season, we're being very mindful of how we can protect our resources and finances and into the coming year. Really taking the guidance from the commission on the implementation funds and trying to plan really conservatively about those. So we're just kind of keeping these things in mind as we plan for the future. But yep, we're plugging away.
Okay. And at this point, we are still operating under, I guess you could call it a suspension of Open Public Meeting Act stuff, which is due to expire September 1. Are we assuming that there's going to be an extension from the governor's office through the month of September to coincide with the continuation of where we're at with COVID phases?
That's all. Oh, go ahead, Jean. Were you going to say something?
Would you like me? So with the regional manager team's been tracking these, and the pattern has been that it continues. And I personally would not expect the situation to change really until the legislature comes back into session. I don't know what would change it. So there's been a couple situations where the extension or the renewal was, you know, a week late, that kind of thing. But you know, other than that, there hasn't been much change. There was that one addition of the option of an in-person meeting in Bay 3 County, so with lots and lots of restrictions. So that change was made, but I don't foresee the governor going the other direction with this and, you know, requiring in-person meetings anytime soon, if that's a concern.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty sure bet at this point. So I guess, Sarah, when we hear that come out next week, just let the board know if and when there's an extension.
Absolutely. I'll continue to share that information.
Okay, great. Any further questions for Sarah on COVID update before we move on? Not hearing any. Okay, let's move on to item 7 then. Governance. Item 7A is the WACD resolutions. In our packet, we have copies of the resolutions that the board passed last year, as well as kind of a summary of what became of those resolutions as they moved through the Southwest area meeting and then through the state meeting. I think the intention today is to take a look at those existing resolutions and say, do we want to repass any of those? And then also open up to consideration of any new resolutions that board members would want to bring forward for consideration. So let's start start with the old here. Sarah has that up on the screen. The three that we passed last year that sort of died with us and didn't go any further were the ones highlighted in blue here. A request that conservation districts have input into the State Conservation Commission staff evaluations. That was the first one. The second one had to do with conservation district election reform. And my recollection about the reason that didn't pass is because things were already underway with the commission in terms of WAC changes and legislative efforts on election reform. And then,
Yes.
yeah, and then the fifth one here, the whistleblower protections that passed Southwest area, but sort of did not get any further than that. Oh, I guess there's one more here too. Number 6, the climate change, the request that the NACD develop an issue paper on climate change. We got that one through the Southwest
And how
area
that one
meeting,
ended
but
up,
it didn't pass the state.
yeah, the problem with number 6, the NACD policy paper on climate, was that they already have an issue paper on climate change at NACD.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so taking a look at these, is there a desire among any board members to, reconsider or reauthorize any of the ones from last year?
Well,
So
I'll go.
go ahead, Doug.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Helen.
Doug, and then Helen. Go ahead, Doug.
I feel pretty adamant about number 1, that CD should have input into staff evaluations. And what I proposed was that we do a pilot where we can see how it worked by doing regional managers. It seems to me that it makes a whole lot of sense for the management of the Conservation Commission to know how their staff is dealing with their clients. The problem last year was a new retiree whose birthday or whose anniversary is tomorrow, by the way. Stu was really adamantly against it, and I never did get a clear answer as to why. He felt like it was already done. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never been asked to get an evaluation put into somebody's evaluation, and I think that's important.
So Doug, you're saying, just to clarify, you're saying that his impression was that that there's no need for this because it's already being implemented, but your impression is that it's not, or that some form of evaluation.
Implemented informally. Yeah, informally.
Okay, so Doug's interested in reauthorizing or repassing the first one dealing with input into the state staff. Is there interest, Helen, David? Is that something you would like to agree to, or not?
I'm fine with that. I would go support Doug on this for sure.
Yeah, I'm supportive.
Okay, and I am as well. So let's take that one and let's put that on our, what I'm hoping we can do today is talk through these, and then we'll put these on our September agenda for action. And we'll actually pass these things on September when we have full wording in front of us. So that's one that we'll put on the agenda for September board meeting for action. Let's go back to our list here. Are there others from last year that we want to reconsider?
Well, so for the next one, the Conservation District election reform, is that one that is sort of being dealt with at this point and we can put by the wayside, or are we considering putting this forward as it is again? I'm because it seems like this is being worked on, right?
Yes.
Yes, and I think you're right, Helen. I
Yeah,
think we
it is.
let this one lapse and see what happens.
Yeah. And I think that's why it didn't go anywhere last year, is that work was just getting underway at the commission on some reforms to the elections, and they seem to be kind of the point on it. And so I think the other districts at the Southwest region said, let's wait and see what the commission does. And now we have an active proposal that's available for public comment right now via the commission. And I would agree that probably we should wait and see where that goes rather than trying to push something else at this point.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that can make whack changes. We can merely advise.
Right. Okay, so we will let number 2 go for now. Let's see, any others on this list from last year that people want to pursue?
Well, I'm going to leave this next one to other people that know more about the context from which it came. I'd be interested to know if other people are wanting to push this forward, the criteria for allocations.
Are you talking about the whistleblower protection, Helen?
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's the one about allegations against supervisors.
Number 3.
Yeah, actually,
Number
that's
5.
not the whistleblower one, I don't think.
Yeah. So number
Yeah,
5 is
sure.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Maybe,
So,
I think, Doug, you and Paul brought this one forward, as I recall. So do you want to say anything about that?
I think, to me, it's pretty self-evident, but I think with the litigation that's going on now, against that, and we're talking about reimbursement for Paul and myself, that might just muddy the waters, and it might be a good time to not do it.
okay, yeah.
I mean,
That was
obviously,
my-
I'd like to get reimbursed, but I don't.
Yeah, that was my inclination as well. Until we get this other stuff sorted out and have some finality to what happened in the past, it's maybe best not to try to set up something prescriptive for the future.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll let that one
Yeah.
go. I think that's the end of our list from last year. So the only one that we've teed up for action in September is the first one around staff input into staff evaluations at the state commission. So that opens the floor. Are there other resolutions that people want to bring forward for consideration at this point?
Well, wait a minute. Can we go back? So what
Mr.
about the whistleblower protection one?
I thought that's what we were just talking about.
Oh, okay. I'm getting confused because there was the other one that was about allegations against supervisors, but so that was what we were talking about, was whistleblower protection. Okay, gotcha.
Point of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Helen, that allegations against supervisors, that passed and was approved already by WAC.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Jean. I'd like to get her perspective on that number 1, if you have anything that you can feel like you can say, Jean.
Sure. Shall I? So, I mean, from my perspective, I expect that anyone evaluating me is considering any input they've heard from districts. I feel like that's just sort of a normal way. If the proposal is more formal, I don't necessarily see any harm in that, other than just sort of sort of a workload perhaps on a supervisor. But no, my expectation is that people are getting feedback. Whether any particular person was asked, I couldn't say, but through whatever method, there's communication about how folks are doing. I think that's how it should be. Can be run different ways. I don't personally object to whatever format people find works, but I think there's at least some of this happening now. I think your word was informal. I think that's probably an accurate characterization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll admit I was confused last year. I talked to Shauna, who supervises the regional managers, and she seemed supportive. And then Stu wasn't supportive, and then Shauna wasn't supportive, so I wasn't sure exactly. I mean, there's always a lot of stuff going on, so I guess no permanent harm done. But if I was a supervisor, I'd want to know how my folks were doing.
Okay, thanks. So anything else? Any other resolutions folks want to bring forward? No. Going once, going twice. Okay. So then we'll just table, or sorry, we will put the single resolution on our September board meeting agenda for action, the resolution on staff input for Conservation District or Conservation Commission staff. Okay. Let's then move to 7B, the climate mitigation plan update and discussion. And let's see, Helen, are you going to take the lead on this? Or is it
Well,
Sarah?
I'm not sure. Sarah, what were you thinking? I mean, I could.
Yeah, I think Helen has some things to share. I think the board also requested an update from David, who sits on the advisory committee for TCD. So I would hand that off to David first, maybe for an update, and Helen for the question.
That sounds great. Thank you. So let's start with David, and just to hear about your involvement with that group at this point in the plan.
Sure thing. Being part of the Thurston Regional Planning Commission, there is a steering group for this climate mitigation plan update, and I haven't been a part of that. They, I believe today was the day they were to release the draft they've been working on for public comment. So I guess that's my report. That's where it's at right now. It's now available for viewing.
Okay. And you're not on the steering committee. You're on the other committee, right, David?
I'm just on the Thurston Regional Planning Commission. I'm not on any committees from that. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, there's two committees. There's an advisory committee, and I think that's where the conservation districts played some role. And then there's the steering committee.
Yeah, we have some staff, I believe, on the advisory committee.
Okay, so there's three things at play here. There's the Thurston Regional Planning Council, and David is our representative to that. There is the advisory committee to the mitigation plan that our staff has been participating in. And there's a steering committee made up of policy people, electeds and others. And we currently have no representation on that.
Yeah, that's where I can provide an update because I attended the steering committee. So I'd like to give you an update about where the process is and then explain maybe where the TCD might play a role. And I'm sorry, I was for some reason thinking that this was a Zoom meeting and I could show, bring up slides, but I don't know how to do it on GoToMeeting, or I don't know if I even can. So, but yeah, they did have their meeting today, and the most active voices were the three cities, Olympia, Tumwater, and Lacey. And just to remind everybody, this is not the same thing as that earlier sort of climate adaptation work that the county was doing. This is a mitigation plan that's aimed specifically at the problem of greenhouse gases and reducing them. And the starting concept was that this would be based on science, figuring out how much of a reduction would be necessary to stop contributing to global warming, and then setting a goal of getting to being carbon neutral by 2050, basically. And the process over the past year, what's been interesting about it is that as they worked on this, they came to a realization that they shouldn't just be looking at emissions, which is where they started, but they should be looking at the whole carbon cycle. So that was the big aha for the steering committee. And I have to say that it really has sunk in. This was one of the big topics of the day today, was the necessity of looking at the whole carbon cycle and looking a lot harder at sequestration, at trees, at farming and soil. The prairies came up. So there's a lot of interest in pushing that a lot more forward than it has been over the past year. So that was really, I thought, a great thing to hear as somebody listening on behalf of the board, because if you look at the material they put out, it's all about emissions, and their updated emissions chart shows that agriculture accounts for just 2% of emissions. So if you think about it in that way, you don't really think that agriculture or rural land or trees or any of that really are very important to this process. But if you're, able to open your mind to the whole carbon cycle, it starts looking very different. And so it's pretty exciting to me that they are really thinking that way. And Tom Oliva, I always forget if it's Oliva or Oliva, but he says that the city of Tumwater has really been looking very hard at this and is very interested. So there, maybe I can just have it sent out. There is a place where you can go to look at the steering committee draft of the plan. And I think it would be useful because if you do that, it's about 9 chapters. And the thing is, what I was hoping I could show you as one of the graphics is that their implementation strategy, which is chapter 6, has a lot of room for this carbon cycle idea. It basically consists of 5 elements: green the grid, shift energy sources, but then it has live lighter. So it's how that's partly about transportation, but they specifically call out reducing food and other waste. And then another heavy element is store carbon, plant trees and preserve the tree canopy and preserve farmland, and increase regenerative agricultural practices. So they call that right out in their, as one of 5 really critical elements. And then the last one is build local capacity. So I think as they're going forward, there's a real place to be talking about conservation in the mix, and a place for the district to have a voice and be a partner in that process. Now, where they are in terms of the general strategy right now, so the steering committee met today. They approved release of this draft plan with a few revisions. There's going to be a public comment period in mid-September, and they were debating a little bit about whether that should just be 2 weeks or 30 days. And one of the specific calls on the part of the TRPC as they're trying to roll this out is they would like help in publicizing the public comment period. So I think that's probably something we can just, get that into our newsletter and that kind of thing. They're going to have a climate plan webinar about it all sometime in September. Then in October, they come back together. They review the public comments. The steering committee meets at the beginning of November, probably, to approve a final plan. So that would be the one that then goes out, and that's kind of the conclusion. With a few loose ends to tie up, that's the conclusion of this whole process. But very clearly, the whole thing is kind of high level, and there's a phase 2 of actually coming up with projects and implementation. And so they talked a bit about that today, and they didn't talk about how they were going to fund it or, sort of what this would look like strategically. They talked about having all of the jurisdictions more or less simultaneously declare a climate emergency, so that would sort of give a context for rolling out this plan, and it would also make all the jurisdictions able to be in a good place for getting any any support at the state or federal level for doing any projects that they decide to do. So that was one thing. They were talking about an interlocal agreement, but they were also definitely talking about carrying on somehow to continuing with having some kind of deliberative body that would work on rolling this out jointly, continuing to work together And at that point, they were talking about expanding, trying to decide how that would look, expanding the advisory, the steering committee side of that. So of course, I made a pitch for including us, the conservation district, in any such future advisory committee or steering committee kind of level. But also just reminded them that that the conservation district would be a great partner for a lot of what they're trying to do, and that we want to continue to be part of that conversation. I got a very positive response from Lisa Parsley about that. So the city of Olympia is very interested in hearing that. And that's where it is.
Great, thank you.
I'd be interested in seeing a copy of that when it comes out.
Well, I can send the current draft plan, the link to Sarah, and then she could send it out to everybody.
Yeah.
Great.
And if you could highlight what parts are most important to look at, if it's 9 chapters, that's a disincentive, I think.
Yeah, that chapters 5 and 6 are the ones we care most about, I think. They're
okay,
the kind of boots on the ground stuff.
Okay, so let's get a copy of that sent out to all the board members. I'd like to take that a little bit further, in that if there's a public comment period that's going to be opening up here in September, I would like to see the district make formal comments as part of that process. And maybe the way to do that is once we've all had a chance, and if you're willing to continue to be point on this, Helen, once we've had a chance to look at it, if we could channel some of our comments to Helen, and Helen could maybe do kind of work to create a draft that would be a board statement or the board comments, the official organizational comments on the plan. Are you willing to kind of be point on that and pull that together, Helen?
Would love to. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing David nod. Are you okay with that, Doug? And hello, Betsy, by the way. Betsy joined us here a little while ago. Betsy, Doug, you okay with that direction?
I would recommend that Adam Peterson be included in that discussion, our staff member that's working on climate.
Great.
Yeah, and we'll have a presentation from Adam on his climate work at our September work session as well. So that'll be a chance for us to engage with Adam around that stuff too. Betsy, are you okay with that direction?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds like a great idea.
There we go then. I will also, just in closing on this thing, note that this is the cynical part of me talking here now, but we're very, very good at coming up with plans in Thurston County. We're really good at writing plans. The Sustainable Thurston was a really good plan, but it always comes down to where's the funding for implementation. So it's a little bit disheartening to hear that at this point there is no funding for implementation. But we're early in the process yet, and maybe that's one of the things that we could, in terms of our comments and our support for this process, is really push in the direction of seeking meaningful funding for this, so it is more than just a plan, a good plan that sits on a shelf somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
TJ, can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Amen.
So just for clarity as well, some of those items and those recommendations that are in chapters 5 and 6, like Helen mentioned, were generated in partnership with TCD staff. So that's our nexus there. Some of those components that are in there, our staff worked on small subcommittees in forestry and agriculture to help propose those. And we would love to continue to support the board's comments or that process or approach in any way we can. I just want to make sure that that's really clear for folks.
Thank you. That's helpful. That's good to know. And I think what we're hoping we're going to do is, at a policy level, through our comments, support the good work that our staff has already done to get good language in the plan.
Much appreciated. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks all. I think that draws a close to that topic. The last thing under governance here, 7C, is to take a look at our September work session list. Can we put that up on the screen, Sarah? I think there was a draft that came out some time ago. There we go. Okay. Is there anything else that folks, either you have questions about this or anything else we need to put onto our work session? Sarah and I talked earlier today, and based on some discussion that she's had with Susan about budget process, we're suggesting that we move. We did originally have budget development stuff on the September work session, but because the books won't be closed on the third quarter at that point, and for some other reasons, it seems like a good idea, at least based on the conversation Sarah and I had, to push that off to our October work session. In July, we did, or actually, I guess earlier in August, we did have a chance to share board member priorities for 2021 budget with staff. So they have our thinking about that, but it would probably make more sense and be less work for us in the long run in terms of multiple revisions if we waited to do the budget development to October instead of September work session. You want to add anything else to that, Sarah?
I think you definitely covered that. Sorry, my screen switched over. I also connected with David about this as well. He may have thoughts as the auditor. Yeah, this will give us the opportunity to have less change and variation between the draft that you review and the finalization later this year. So we'll have a better understanding of what we'll be working with in 2021 by the October work session.
David, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just I believe it's a good idea as well. Talking with Sarah about this, closing out third quarter will give us better numbers to work with for getting our budget ready for next year.
Okay. All right. So seem to be some concurrence there that we'll pull that off of the September work session. We'll move it to October. Any other changes to the September work session list?
Well, I'm pedaling as fast as I can.
We need to be consistent.
But
oh, sorry. Let's do Betsy and then Doug. Go ahead, Betsy.
Okay. I came in late, but is there somewhere on here something? If Helen's going to draft a comment for us to submit, do we need to have that in the form of a resolution? Do we need to look at that? We can't do a resolution at the work session, though. I don't know the dates for the comment period in September, but
Yeah, there might be. When's the October work session? Well, actually, yeah, by the time we got to the board meeting in October, that'd probably be a little late. So I think you're right, Betsy. We might need to make some room for that.
well, we have the board meeting in September. You jumped ahead.
Well, right, I know, but I was thinking that, you know, we could wait until the October work session to take it on, but we can't really. Yeah, I think you're right. We'd have to do it in September.
So why don't we add an agenda item here to have a discussion about that draft, assuming we will all have had a chance to look at it, that then might tee up action for our September board meeting to take a formal statement or something like that. Does that seem like it will work with their timeline for comment, Helen?
Yeah, it's not great because we'll be a little bit premature. I mean, they didn't really, since they had been debating about whether they were going to do a 15 or a 30-day public comment period, you know, what had been presented was basically the second half of September. So I'm not sure how well developed whatever it is that they roll out will be, but we do have the draft, you know, because they will have some revisions to based on today's steering committee meeting. But presumably they'll have the new version out by the time that we meet. There's probably enough to work with. Yeah, I think we can do it. It's not great, but we can do it.
So let's at least put a placeholder on this September work session, and then we'll figure out where we go from there based on their timeline. Okay? Anything else? I think we can
Yeah, I
take
think we
off.
should have a position on whether we want a 15-day or a 30.
Well, the steering committee was pretty firm that they wanted a 30-day, but the trouble was it was messing with the overall. They're not rolling it out quickly enough. You know, they should have rolled it out by now. They want to make a decision in November, so they were kind of going back and forth about that. But it sounded like they were going to go to a 30-day.
Okay. All right. And it looks like
It's
we
going
can
to be hard
delete
for us to react if we don't know when the due date is.
I know. Well, I
think
think it'll be flexible for us.
okay. Well, just keep us abreast of it as it changes. I think we can delete number 8 here, the WACD resolutions, because we just agreed we're going to schedule the one for action at the end of September at our board meeting. So that can come off the work session. That look like a reasonable list for a starting point for folks? Yep.
I have one
Okay.
question for the board.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we need.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Earlier this year, we discussed moving work sessions through the summer to Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month versus the second Thursday, which is what they were historically. I wanted to check in with the board on that date to see if scheduling this for that second Thursday, September 10th, was still the board's intent, or if the second Tuesday, the 8th, is if the board likes that style. So I just wanted to check in to make sure we had the date appropriate.
Yeah, as the guy who pushed you all to make that change based around my own schedule, I thought the original change was we were going to do Tuesdays through September, so that meeting date would be September 8th. And then I'm able to go back to Thursday meetings beginning in October if folks want to do that, or I'm also happy to leave it on Tuesdays. But it was just through September we needed to do it on Tuesdays if I was going to participate.
I'm fine with either day, Tuesday or Thursday. It doesn't matter to me.
Anybody have a strong preference one way or the other?
I'm fine either way.
Okay. Then I'd suggest we go back to Thursdays
Yeah,
just for simplicity so that we have second Thursday, fourth Thursday kind of in our brains starting in October.
that sounds fine.
Okay,
Sounds fine.
here we go. Thanks for catching that, Sarah. That's good. Okay, let's move then to the last item on our agenda, other reports. First up is board supervisor reports. Are there reports from supervisors? None from shaking heads here.
I would just like to say I've enjoyed working with you all so much more than I was enjoying the CD 2 years ago and previously. So thank you for making life bearable.
You're welcome, Doug. The only thing I'll share here is that we're getting close to scheduling the next meeting with the City of Olympia on the farmland mitigation work that we've been doing. Our staff, Adam, has been pulling some data together, and Sarah tells me that probably after she and Adam talk tomorrow, we'll be in a position to go back to the city and say we're ready for the next meeting, and then we'll leave it to them to schedule that meeting. So I'm guessing probably sometime in the first part of September, we'll get together again. And the next meeting, I think, will be the first one where we're really going to start to drill down onto what the policy language. I mean, we've been gathering a lot of data and thinking a lot about scenarios, but I think we're going to be now transitioning to thinking about the kind of policies that we would want to put in place, either to save farmland or to mitigate loss of farmland. So that's exciting that we're kind of moving to that next step. That's all I have. Sarah, ED report?
I've got two really quick updates for you guys. One is that because of COVID-19, our very traditionally robust workshop schedule that we have every year, our district does usually between 20 and 30 events, which is quite a bit. We have turned virtual and we have seen overwhelming success with them. In fact, there's a Pacific Northwest winter gardening one tonight, right at the same time. And we had 300 RSVPs for that single workshop. We had to turn away at least another 50 people that were interested in participating. We just maxed out on our GoToMeeting. We couldn't upgrade it anymore. So it's been highly successful. All of these are recorded and put on our website, posted to our social media, sent back to those folks that were not able to attend, sent to those folks that were able to attend so they can file it. So it's been a really great opportunity for us to really increase awareness of our district, increase our reach. We definitely see the majority of folks here from Thurston County, but also surrounding counties and areas that may not have these resources and capacity. We see people from out of the state as well and other conservation districts that are participating and kind of, how are they doing that over there? And so it's been highly successful. We're rolling up and wrapping up some numbers on that, and we look forward to sharing that back with the board closer to the end of the year. But it's been actually a really great for the district and a great way for us to provide this education and also make this a lasting educational resource that's part of our website. So that's been really exciting. The second thing is to support our farmland preservation initiative work. I've been having some conversation again, rekindling some of our local partners, trying to further some of the efforts and identify additional funding sources, learn from some of the other districts that are further down the pike in some of the RCPP or the Regional Conservation Partnership Program funds, seeing some of the challenges and pitfalls that they have unfortunately been accustomed to, and planning for how we can maybe mitigate them and leverage some other funding sources that are unique to where we sit here in Thurston County. The Conservation Commission has a new Office of Farmland Preservation coordinator who formerly worked for PCC Farmland Trust and was a partner on a grant for some farmland preservation work in this area. And so we've had an introductory call in her new role. I've kind of run by our approach in pulling together stakeholders and partners, identifying priorities for the landscape, doing some of this land use analysis and melding that with some of the endangered species pressures that we're facing in Thurston County. And we really synthesize all of the funding pots and pools that are available to the district. And she's provided some tremendous guidance, having a lot of tenured experience in easement holding. And so I am really excited to move forward with that partnership and continue to pull these pieces together. I think we have, again, it's a prime time to move this forward. The Joint Base Lewis McChord Sentinel Landscape Partnership is a group that we participate in with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Department of Defense and NRCS. We're one of the local partners here. There's also funding for to support endangered species conservation, agricultural viability, and military readiness that will come through that group at some point in the future. They're finalizing their plan within the coming months. And so, again, I'm melding all of those pieces together to find a streamlined approach for TCD to participate and support, but also to make this a successful initiative in Thurston County. And I just feel like it's a great time, and I'm really excited by what's on the horizon, and I look forward to providing more details as they identify themselves.
Sarah, that sounds great. I have a question about the first item you mentioned. I'm curious about the virtual workshop RSVPs. versus how many people tend to show up? Is there a steep drop off or pretty well attended? Even, you know, people say they're coming, do they show up?
Yeah,
Because you
no,
mentioned you have to get more technology or whatever to accommodate more people.
yeah, there's definitely a steep drop off of people that participate in the live event. It's right about 50% of folks come to the event that RSVP. So, you know, we'll see what tonight's numbers end up being, but it varies. I mean, I would say between 40 and 60 is probably accurate. The one thing it does do is they register in the system. So then they get all of the response emails and information and follow up and the recorded virtual webinars. So as far as folks actually participating, it's been between 40 and 60% of those that are RSVPs. So, but we've definitely seen, I would say, an increase in virtual participation, even from traditional workshop participation at this point. But the numbers will speak for themselves, I guess, at the end of the year. We'll synthesize those.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. That concludes the ED report. That takes us to the end. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Betsy moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
David seconds. Betsy, how do you vote?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we are adjourned at 6:36 p.m. Thank you all for another productive and efficient meeting here. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the work session. Stay safe, stay sane. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Hey, Sarah, could
Bye-bye.
you hold on? Can you hang on for just a sec? I wanted to ask you a question, a GoToMeeting question.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me